Here we go. Final seconds.
Clutch is his name. Talking sports is his game.
End zone. Touchdown with no time left.
Pushing the limits.
They win on the last play of the ball game.
There are no limits.
Are you kidding?
Who can you count on to make the last throw or shot?
Wow, and the game is over.
Mikey Clutch. This is the final play.
Unbelievable.
We are back. We are back. Welcome into the final play. I'm live. Very scary, very nervous. First live pod in a very long time. So hopefully it goes well and goes off without a hitch. Have to be the producer and the talent. All in one, all wrapped, perfect for Christmas, right? All wrapped in one little package. But here we are. We have a few games in prime time this weekend. I'm going to get into the Bears. We will be getting into the Thursday night football matchup tonight, which is the Seahawks and the Rams. We're also going to touch on the Ravens and the Patriots, Sunday night football. And I got to give you the debt-free pick 3. Debt-free pick 3 live for the pod. So I'm going to start for the game with the game that kicks off in just under a few hours here. And that Thursday night matchup between the Rams and the Seattle Seahawks. Now, these two teams played back in week 11. And the Rams came out on top. Very close game. 2-point game, 21-19. The Seahawks had a chance to win the game on a 61-yard field goal attempt. It was missed. But I think it really boiled down to Sam Darnold's interceptions that game. He had 4, which is a lot. But the fact that defense still kept them in and didn't give up too many points, 2 of the Rams' drives were one started on the 3-yard line, one started on the 25-yard line. So you got 2 touchdowns with a total of 28 yards. They had 2 good drives. One was turnover on downs. Their best drive was their 10-play, 74-yard touchdown. But other than that, Seattle's defense held them in check. They also forced a fumble. And that game was within reach, like I said, at the end. So if Sam Darnold doesn't turn the ball over as many times as he did, I think Seattle wins that game, and they're probably sitting at the top of the NFC conference as the number 1 seed right now. The Rams are, but that's why this is a big matchup. Huge matchup tonight. Winner puts themselves in a very good position for the number 1 seed in the NFC. Seahawks, they win, they're number 1. Then they have to play a couple of tough games, right? They got Carolina next week, and they finish with San Francisco in the final week. So if all goes well for the Niners on Monday night, who knows? Week 18 could be for either team to win the number 1 seed, depending on how the Bears and Packers do on Saturday. But I think the Rams probably coming in a little like hotter. But Seattle, I mean, to their credit, their defense probably number 2 in the league behind Houston. They were my pick to win the division this year. They're in a really good spot. And Darnold, this is kind of giving me familiar vibes of last year, week 18 versus Detroit for the division, right? That was such a big game. It had playoff, atmosphere, playoff feel to it. And this one's just the same. And he really hasn't in his career shown that he could show up where the spotlights are on in big moments. So I'm hoping that he can kind of right the ship and change that narrative about him kind of turning into scam Darnold in these games, and I'm rooting for him. I really like that. He went to Seattle from Minnesota, had that big year last year, kind of turned his career around. And Seattle moving on from Geno Smith kind of looked like the right decision from that franchise. But he's going up against a pretty solid defense in the Rams and a guy who is top 3 right now, top 3 favorite to win the MVP. And that's Matt Stafford, which he really has only had one bad game so far this year. And that was week 11 against the Seattle Seahawks. You know, he completed just barely over 50%, 130 yards. He had a couple touchdowns, but one of those was a 1-yard pass to Devontae Adams. They didn't really have to do much. So I think Stafford coming in playing as hot as he is now, he's going to be without Devontae Adams. That hamstring really tweaked in the fourth quarter and it was going to be a potential touchdown. I don't know. He had the corner kind of beat before he had to pull up on it, but I think Stafford's going to be without him, and not to mention Puka Nacua. Who knows if he's going to be near 100%. Now he was limping off the field last week. He was on the sideline, came in for a play, and then he ended up after that play going to the sideline. I believe it was like a run or jet sweep or something. But if he's not 100%, that's your top 2 weapons that you're going to be kind of handcuffed with. And at least for the Rams, their running attack has been really good with Blake Corum now kind of spelling out Kyron Williams, because Williams, they want to kind of keep him fresh for the playoffs. But I think this game, you know, the running backs from both sides, all 4 of them, have to kind of take the weight, I feel like, off these quarterbacks' shoulders, because one, with Sam Darnold's limitations in big games, as I just mentioned, and then also Stafford kind of being down a couple guys for their full potential. But I do think Stafford can kind of make do with what he has. He's just shown year in and year out like he's a top quarterback in this league. You go back to the Detroit years where, yes, they didn't really make the playoffs at all, but the reason why that team was even in conversations and in games was because of him and Megatron. And I don't know, Stafford kind of being healthy this year, you really see how valuable he is for the Rams. So yeah, I mean, I expect this to be another close game, and I'm more leaning towards Seattle, but we'll get into that little teaser because that's going to be a game in my debt-free pick 3 going on. But I like it. It's a good matchup. This is just going to be a fun divisional game. A lot of seeding implications on it to see where either of them may fall. Okay? But let's move on. We live in Chicago here. There's a team out here that's been playing really well this year. New coach. They may, I don't know. Jury's still out. At least my jury's still out on the quarterback. I don't know. He's playing phenomenal. Fourth quarter comeback king. Caleb Williams, the Chicago Bears, are going to be playing their division rival on Saturday. What happened last time? Well, Packers won 28-21. And Jordan Love really looked good, really looked comfortable. And I think that's kind of one thing that the Bears fans have not seen this year is that defense create enough pressure on opposing quarterbacks. And in this game, it was damn near non-existent. I mean, they blitzed 13 times, 1 sack, 1 pressure, right? 3.5% of Jordan Love's dropbacks, he was pressured. That's wow. With him just sitting back there, having time to throw, and The Bears are also susceptible to the long plays, which you also saw Christian Watson have a big touchdown, right? So they're going to have to figure something out this time around because, yes, Christian Watson might not be 100%. He did say he's okay with that shoulder to play. I don't know how you limit Jordan Love's effectiveness, like when he's got all day to throw, all day to find his guys. I just think if the Bears can't put pressure, it's just going to be the same song and dance as we've seen 2 weeks ago on that last matchup. Luckily for the Bears, I think game plan still run the ball with the two-headed monster you have. That just seems to always work, and that worked well against Green Bay last time out. Now Caleb coming off his best game, that's by far accuracy-wise the best game I've seen him throw. Now, even when he isn't as accurate as he was against the Browns, and the Browns, very good defense, right? Like they're not one of these bad teams that don't show up and give up a bunch of points on a weekly basis. They fight. They are known to hold some good offenses to some low scores. I mean, you go prior, right, for the 49ers. Niners could not move the ball against them. Niners, a couple special teams plays from both sides, giving the Niners an advantage, and that's how they scored. So Cleveland's defense isn't a joke, and was really impressive to see Caleb shine through and finally have a game where I needed to see him elevate in the passing game, just be more accurate with guys, because I just don't like when he misses a guy 5 yards down the field wide open, 10 yards down the field wide open, because that's happened multiple times this year. Multiple. But hey, I'm giving him his flowers. I'm not confident. Like, if we're in a playoff matchup, Bears make it to the playoffs, and he's got to go against the Rams or Seattle's defense, I don't trust him yet. And that's partly due to the fact that we haven't seen Caleb in big games, really. But this is all or nothing for the Bears. And I kind of mentioned this a couple weeks ago before the first Green Bay Packer game against the Bears. Like, this is what Ben Johnson was brought to Chicago for. You gotta beat the Packers. You gotta at least split with them. Now, last year, they split. Malik Willis almost beat the Bears last year, leading a drive for a potential game-winning field goal too, because Jordan Love was, I think, taken out in the second quarter or whatever. Malik had to come in, and the Bears still almost lost. But Ben Johnson, it's a real deal in my eyes. I do think Chicago kind of found their coach, but this is exactly what you came in for. You had that little interview, taking shots at Matt LaFleur and trying to spark this rivalry up. But in order for it to be a rivalry, it's got to go back and forth. It can't just be a one team dominates and the other gets a win here or there. But like I said, like, the Bears haven't won in Lambeau since 2014, 2015, when Jay Cutler was still slinging the rock for him. So, I mean, if you split it with Green Bay, I think that's a win, right? Well, obviously it's a huge win because that'll put the Bears in position to win the division with a tough schedule. Now, the Bears have the tougher schedule of the two. And there is news that broke. Like, so this is going to be interesting with both offenses. Adunze is going to be out. Luther Burden out for Caleb. So, you're going to get a heavy dose of hopefully the tight ends, Kmet and Loveland. You still got more out there who had a great week last week. And Zacchaeus in spot has been solid for him. But next man up for those guys. And, one positive, I guess, if you're a Bears fan, is no Micah Parsons, because he tore the ACL last week and he's out for the season. Unfortunate if you're a Packer fan, but if you're a football fan in general, like I am, it was just crushing to see him now done for the year. Who knows what Green Bay would have. Now, I still liked Green Bay to make a deep playoff run and potentially represent the NFC in the Super Bowl prior to the Parsons trade. So I still think they're going to be fine. Jordan Love kind of playing some really good football lately. And, I mean, the momentum last week, it was close. They went up against the top team in the AFC, Denver Broncos. That was a close game. They only lost by one possession. So I just think Green Bay coming off that loss, the Bears coming off a big win, it's going to be a tight match. Tight matchup. Unfortunately, I still might be leaning one side more than the other. But I'll get into that in a little bit. Another tease for the debt-free pick 3. But moving on from that rivalry, we're going to go into an AFC matchup. Sunday Night Football. And that's going to be the New England Patriots traveling to the Baltimore Ravens. New England still leading that AFC East. Baltimore kind of trying to cling on the hopes of still making the playoffs and potentially still winning that division. Now they're going to need some help. Luckily, Pittsburgh plays Detroit this week in Detroit. So that might help them out to even have their chances a little bit better going into next week. But Baltimore plays Pittsburgh week 18. So if Baltimore wins this week, can beat Green Bay next week, then that week 18 matchup against Pittsburgh is going to be really interesting. But I like this matchup just because you do have a really good Baltimore defense that's been playing well as of late. They're really catching fire since week 10. I think going back to that Rams game they played when Cooper Rush was playing quarterback, they held the Rams to 17 points, and the Rams were offensively the hottest team coming in that week, and only held them to only 17 points. So I thought that was really good, and they really haven't looked back since. Now, yes, they haven't been winning all their games. The Bengals matchup, the offense coughed up the ball 4 times, and guess what? The Ravens defense only gave up a field goal every single time. So I think they're coming in really strong. They shut out the Bengals the second time around. It's just that offense, the inconsistency, Lamar Jackson. I'm not convinced that he's fully healthy with that hamstring. Lamar, we're so used to seeing him use his legs a little more and those being a bigger weapon for him. I had to look it up, and he's averaged the past 6 years 145 carries per season. 145 carries per season the last 6 years. He's only at 61 carries this year for 339 yards or 333 yards, sorry. And I just think that hamstring, and guess what? When you're not a threat to use your legs, as he's been this just guy that we've never seen before in the league. Because listen, last year, statistically, by far the best throwing year. People didn't think he could do it, and he was able to do it. What was it? 41 touchdowns, 7 picks, or 4 picks, or whatever it was. And a lot of that was because he was effective with his legs too. Defense can't just sit back and cover all your guys. So I just think that the Ravens haven't been able to offensively be as consistent because he hasn't been consistently great with his legs. And I just think he's still kind of nursing the hamstring injury, which is unfortunate because I think that injury alone is the reason why Baltimore is on the outside looking in. And, and I mentioned the 145 carries per season last 6 years, that's with him missing games due to injuries. Now, yes, he does seem to get hurt a little bit. But for the most part, compared to some other quarterbacks that have missed time, he's fairly healthy in regards to that. But Drake May, another guy that's in the top 3 discussion for the MVP, had a good hot start with his legs against the Bills last week. Now the Patriots I wouldn't say they did blow a big lead. It was a 3-score lead against a division opponent. But Buffalo, I just have to say, Josh Allen, scariest guy in football right now, scariest guy to game plan against, hottest. He's threw his hat back in the ring of that MVP discussion as well. So I just think it was due for the Patriots to lose that one. But the Bills nipping at their heels for the division lead on that. So this is a big game for the Patriots. They cannot. They lose this, Bills win. I think Patriots still have the tiebreaker, but you just can't lose any more games after that. In the Patriots. So Drake May, this is definitely his biggest test as far as going up against defenses, top defenses. This is the best defense he's going to play, that he has played all year. But it's an efficient offense. If there's anything you can do, and that Drake May exceeds probably better than anybody in the league right now this year that I've seen, is the downfield throws. Baltimore gives up pretty big plays often. They have 46 plays of 20-plus yards allowed. That's tied for fifth, and 8 plays of 40-plus yards. That's tied for fourth. So top that with being 1-3 in primetime games this year. Not looking good for the Ravens. I would like to see the Ravens win this because I want to see them in the playoffs over Pittsburgh and Aaron Rodgers as far as a viewing experience. But that's just me. I like to see top quarterbacks play, and who knows, Lamar by then, if he can be good, but I doubt it, and it's unfortunate. Like I said, that injury is the cause for a lot of problems. But moving on, before I get into my debt-free pick 3, I wanted to do a little playoff machine before we get into that. And so I am going to pull up the playoff machine for the final 3 weeks just to play around with it and see who is potentially going to miss the playoffs and who can still have a fighting chance to make it. But yeah, let's get this going. Here. Okay. Wow. It's up. Okay. So right now, where it currently stands, if the season were to end today, AFC, Denver, number 1 seed. New England would be hosting the Houston Texans. Jacksonville hosting Buffalo. And Pittsburgh hosting the Chargers. On NFC side, Rams, number 1 seed. Chicago hosting Green Bay. The Eagles hosting the Niners. And Seattle traveling to Tampa Bay. Now, let's start with the AFC. I like to say the NFC for last, just because I'm a Niners fan. If most of you do not know that by now, you've been living under a rock. But there's also the Chicago Bears that could see potentially the playoffs this year, with Ben Johnson leading the helm, first-year head coach. But we'll go AFC first. So we'll go this week's matchups for the Baltimore Ravens. Win would be huge. A Detroit win would be even bigger. So we're just looking at what it takes for the Ravens to kind of jump the Steelers. Now, the Ravens, as I mentioned, have a really tough schedule coming up. But you win this week and next week. And then Pittsburgh, I can't find Pittsburgh. Oh, now they'll probably beat Cleveland. So let's see. So now, guess what? That's kind of what you want for that division. It goes to week 18, and guess who plays each other? So winner of that. So that's what we kind of want to see. We want to see both Baltimore win this weekend, Detroit win. Now, Bears fans probably aren't going to like me saying that, but this is what I want to see, right, for the most interesting playoffs. And then for the most interesting scenario going into week 18, you got Baltimore versus Pittsburgh, winner of that. will take on that number 4 seed, right? All right, let's clear that up. Now, a lot can still happen with the AFC East. So as I mentioned, Baltimore wins. Buffalo takes care of business against Cleveland. We're going to go Baltimore. Oh, Green Bay. Now, Green Bay, let's just say Green Bay wins. Okay. Actually, we don't need that matchup. Bear with me here. See, this is fun doing things live, isn't it? All right. Like I said, Baltimore win. Buffalo handle business against Cleveland. We got Patriots should be fine against the Jets. Buffalo, Eagles. That's a tough matchup, but let's just say they get out of there. That's going to shake some things up in the NFC as well. Now, Buffalo, in reality, could very well win out. And the Patriots, this Miami game, I wouldn't count it out. I think that, to me, right there, other than this Baltimore game, if they lose this Baltimore game, that one is, to me, the most interesting game because Miami, although record out of the playoffs right now, they're no chance of making it, right? They're already eliminated. They're 6-8 right now. And they've been playing some really good football. I mean, don't forget, they beat Buffalo. So Patriots got to watch out. That's no walk in the park. Miami, that's very upset potential. They beat Miami in Miami earlier this year. I know Batua benched. Will that be a Quinn Ewers game? We don't know. Let's see how he plays this week. Will that take that offense up just a little bit, just up a little more? But we'll see. But so so they would have to lose that for Buffalo to take over the division. All right, moving on to NFC. This is where things are kind of a lot of juice on the table here. All right, we're just going to go this week. As I mentioned, if Seattle wins this game against the Rams tonight, they are now the number 1 seed. Bears beat Green Bay. You got the Niners beating the Colts. I said Detroit beating Pittsburgh. Let's move on to week 17. Very good matchup here. Now, finally, a Bears and Niners game that I am nervous about because I do think the Bears probably next week, unfortunately, beat the Niners. Pains me to say that because maybe to nobody else in the States, nobody else, this matchup probably doesn't matter to a lot of people. To me, this is the Niners' second biggest rival to the Rams. This is going to be a very interesting match, but we'll say Green Bay beats Baltimore. Seattle takes care of business against Carolina. Now, a Niners win. We'll put the Niners to 12-4, but we'll start with the Bears win. Bears, all right, 12-4, looking good. This is a big game here. Niners beat Seattle. Now, I don't think they're going to beat Seattle twice this year, but let's say they do, and the Bears take care of business against Detroit. Look who is your number 1 seed this year. Bears, it's in play. You can still win and be the number 1 seed, but you have to beat Green Bay this week. You have to. No questions about it. But, like I said, this is where it gets fun. I'm going to go to my team beating you next week. Look who automatically jumps to number 1 seed because we play Seattle. So we need a Seattle. The Niners need a Seattle win tonight, and the Niners need a win out to get a number 1 seed. Now, Niners clinch. I will probably on my Monday pod be talking about the Niners because they play Monday night against the Colts. They win. They punch their ticket to the playoffs, which if you ask me, I kind of say this every pod. If you would ask me in the beginning of the year, Niners would make the playoffs, and you told me half the defense would be on IR at some point and still on IR and miss the season, I would have said, did I die? Did I go to heaven? Is that still going to happen? So, yeah, that to me is a big game Monday night. So I will touch about that on that pod. But now, if we reverse it, LA wins tonight. They're probably going to win the number 1 seed because next week they have the Falcons. I don't see them dropping that game. And then they finish with Arizona, who they just blew out. So Green Bay cannot take over the number 1 seed, and neither can the Bears if the Rams win tonight and then win out. Which that's probably what I think is going to happen is the Rams win tonight and they win out, and they're going to be the number 1 seed. But another thing that could shake up the Bears season, if they go out and lose against the Packers on Saturday night, and for some reason they also drop a game against the 49ers, they play the Detroit Lions in Week 18. Now, Detroit, I think they could very well beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's at home in Detroit. Detroit is a very different team at home. They put up a lot of points. That could be a win. And then they play the Vikings, who they lost to in Detroit. Little revenge factor. This last game, that decides who makes the 7th spot. So between that and the NFC West, a lot can change. A lot can change for those two divisions. Now, I do not see the Bears losing out. I just don't. That would be the most Chicago Bears thing to happen, is if they were to somehow lose all 3 games. But again, I wouldn't put my money on that. But there is something I would put my money on. And
we don't do anything illegal.
Debt-free pick 3.
Look what I found in my pocket! Look! A year's salary right here! What I call them? A fun coupon!
This is the Debt-free pick 3
On the final play!
with Mikey Clutch.
that's right. Debt-free pick 3 time. I pick 3 games every week against the spread. And my record on the year is now 25-24. We've skidded terribly down the last few weeks of the season. We were hot. We were 21-12 at one point. Only winning 4 games so far, or since then. But all 3 games I just talked about. And I'm going to start with Green Bay going to Chicago on Saturday Night Football. I just think this is going to be a close game either way. I don't see the Bears winning by more than a field goal. And I just can't see it. If they can't get pressure on Jordan Love and he's got time to deliver the ball and get deep, and Packers are going to be able to score, it's going to be a close game. And that's why I'm going to take Packers plus 3.5 on the road in Chicago. I just think these games are always good and close. And now Jordan Love, he's 4-0 now against the Bears when he starts and finishes games. I don't count that Week 18 game against him as a loss. He came out in the second quarter. And when he came out, they had the lead. So, in baseball, that would be a no decision. Second game tonight, Thursday Night Football. I'm taking the Seahawks minus 1.5 at home versus the Rams. I just love that defense too much for them to listen. Stafford had his worst game of the year the first go around in Week 11. I don't see it getting any better. He's not going to have Devontae Adams. I already mentioned Puka probably coming in a little limited as far as his explosiveness. But now watch him go 8 catches for 120 yards. But it really is. The Rams have not shown that they could stop Jackson Smith and Jigba. And I think he's going to have another good game. But I feel like the run games are going to get going in this one. But I just like Seattle too much in this one, their defense, to hold the Rams I got the -1.5 at home. And then finally, Sunday Night Football. I touched on this game too. The Ravens -2.5 versus the Patriots in Baltimore. This is going to be a really good test for Drake May. He's looked great all season long. They were riding a 10-game winning streak up until last week. So I think it's going to be different. Now, Baltimore can give up some yards in the air. But we'll see. The Patriots defense, the rush defense, ever since I forget who their line guy who went out, but ever since then, they didn't allow a 50-yard rusher almost all year. And it's been happening a lot more recently. So if Derrick Henry can get going and Lamar Jackson is 80% of what we're used to seeing, then I think the Ravens will – I'm surprised they're favored, but I am still going to take them because even if they weren't upset potential, but they are a favorite, so no upset there. I think they're going to win it. I think season on the line, playoff hopes, division still within reach, and a lot riding. You'll know by then if Pittsburgh wins or not. If Pittsburgh goes out there and loses against Detroit, I mean, the Ravens better be balls to wall, all in. But yeah, that's going to round it out. Packers +3.5. Seahawks -1.5. Ravens -2.5 versus the Patriots. Thank you very much for watching. Please follow, like, subscribe, do whatever you got to do for all my socials at TFP Mikey Clutch. And that's going to be at X, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. YouTube coming soon. I tried to figure it out today. Couldn't figure it out, but we will gradually get things going a little better. All right. And then stay tuned today for my prophecy pick of the day on TikTok. I will be giving that out later, probably within the next hour or so for tonight's game, my favorite prop. But that's going to do it for me. Thanks for watching if you want.
Here we go. Final seconds.
Clutch is his name. Talking sports is his game.
End zone. Touchdown with no time left.
Pushing the limits.
They win on the last play of the ball game.
There are no limits.
Are you kidding?
Who can you count on to make the last throw or shot?
Wow, and the game is over.
Mikey Clutch. This is the final play.
Unbelievable.